Hello, Cardiac Radio. We are here streaming live at the Cardiac Radio Facebook page at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific time, all time zones in between and around the world. And we are here for one purpose. First, I'd like to say we are here every Sunday night at the same time, all around the world. We are also on at the same time, 7 Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, on my Facebook page, Spiritism in the Spirit World Around Us. And I've been talking about Leon Denis, his take on what he said on his book Here and Hereafter. Many interesting things that Leon Denis exposed a lot about life in the spirit world and why we're here and, how we should cope. But tonight we were talking about Spiritism, of course. I want to remind everyone that if you want to understand more about Spiritism, this is the book to start with, the Spirits book. It's on PDF. Allan Kardec codified this book from information, all organized by the Spirit of Truth, as promised by Jesus Christ. I will send you a consoler, and he will tell you more. And of course, Allan Kardec utilized many mediums, asked them the same question, and unless the answers from the different mediums communicating with spirits was the same or exactly the same, he did not use it in the book. There are 1,019 questions in his Spirits book, and they are all fascinating. They tell you so much. But tonight, we are talking about different aspects of reincarnation. And one of the most, I would say heart-rendering aspects of reincarnation is when you stop it prematurely. And of course, a lot of this information is in my book, The Case for Reincarnation. And you can go to my website, nwspiritism.com, and you can click on The Case for Reincarnation. It's in Kindle and in paperback. I also like to make sure that people know that my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, hello, soul. My book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, is out on as an audiobook. And you can click on that. There you can get that Kindle, paperback, or audio format. So that is my first audiobook, if that's the way you like to listen. I've had quite a few sales already. So let me know how you feel about an audiobook. People say that they like to listen to it while they walk their dog in the morning or in their car. So hopefully it tells you about my life, my signs and signals, how I discovered Spiritism, what Spiritism has meant to me, and how it's guided my life. Okay, so what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about leaving reincarnation early. Hello, Tommy. We're talking about leaving reincarnation early. And it's not a pleasant subject. And so first I'd like to say is that it's something that please tell all your friends, if you have anyone depressed, whatever, have them actually, before I start, have them read this book, Memoirs of a Suicide. I would encourage everyone to read this book. It's one of the best books I have ever read by Yvonne Pereira. You can get it on the EDI-CEI website. And I noticed that the link isn't working lately, but hopefully it should be back up. They must be doing something with it. So if you're listening to this around August of 2019, it may not work. Be patient. But you can also look up this book on Amazon.com. You can find it there. And it is a great book. And it's about the whole story of Camilo Branco, who was actually called the Portuguese Balzac. And I'll get more into that as I go through why we should commit suicide. And he's just such a brave individual. He does not hesitate to say every mistake he made. He is so much braver than I could ever be. All I can do is admire him, and of course admire Yvonne Pereira. And as I was saying before, I was talking about the Leon Denis book. After Leon Denis died, he actually, as a spirit, Leon Denis actually helped Yvonne Pereira organize this book, because the way Yvonne Pereira worked, she wasn't a medium who psychographed like Chico Xavier. She actually kind of went with Camilo, engaged in discussion, went to places he was at, saw what he saw. Um, and it was said that she was like totally exhausted after each one of these things, and she'd write notes. But how, and then all of a sudden she said Camilo disappeared. But then Leon Denis came to her and said, I'm going to help you organize the book. And it must have been pretty soon after he died, which goes, oh, yes. And Soul said, I just finished reading this amazing book. And yes, you can tell his exclamation point that he loved it. It is amazing. And it's just the whole story. I mean, I've never read anything like it. And so I would encourage, in fact, all of her books are good. Unfortunately, only 2 of them are in English. So I wish more of them would be in English, but I can't recommend this book enough. Now, let's talk about Juanita Ramos. She reading is watching from the Philippines. How interesting! I think the first person I've said who's coming from the Philippines. How exciting! Well, congratulations on coming. So let's talk about a very unpleasant subject, and I always think when I think about suicide, I remember I was walking by the street, on the street. It was actually in Rio de Janeiro. It was years ago. I was here just for a couple of weeks, right on vacation. And there was this tall building, and there was this tarp over something. And then someone told me that they covered up some poor young lady who had jumped from a very high floor to her death. And I thought, oh, every time I pass by that, I always think of her and hope that she's okay. So let me get into it. We spiritists, we are told, we are taught that we must pay in this life or the next for the wrongs we have committed. And so therefore, we go through a series of trials, all it not meant to punish us, but meant for our edification, meant for our learning, right? Just like when you have a 4-year-old who does something like run out into the street, and you put them in the corner, or maybe you slap her hand, right? And of course, to them, standing in that corner is like the worst. They just cry. It's the worst thing that could ever happen to them. But for you, the parent, you know that it's a lesson they had to learn, right? Because you can't have them. They would hurt themselves running out in the street. It's something you had to do. Much like what the spirit world does for us. We have to be civilized. We have to be civilized. Why? Because we are here to become a perfect spirit, a more civilized spirit, to get rid of our primitive emotions. And therefore, we must go through these learning periods, right? In the learning periods, this period we're on Earth, we're not here to become an intellectual giant or an artistic giant or whatever it is. We're here really to change our attitude and our character for the better, to get rid of the primitive emotions and bake in through the white heat of suffering the good emotions. That's why we're here for. But so we go through hard times, but when we're done, we're done. Now, for suicide, unfortunately, it doesn't end. If someone commits suicide and you're going through this terrible condition, when you commit suicide, it gets worse. And let me cite you some examples. In Andre Luis's first book, No Solar, which I would recommend again to everybody, it's a great book. His whole series of books are very interesting. Oh, Dania, hello. How are you doing, Dania? I got a lot of people on already. So this book, No Solar, was published in 1944. And it starts with Andre dies. And this is what he was sent to this place that he didn't understand. And let me take a picture of it. Which is great. There's No Solar, the movie, which is called, I think, Celestial Astral City in English. And you can rent that. I rented that, I think, for $3.99. You can rent that. Matthew, I'm glad you caught the show too, Matthew. So Here's a picture of this is from there's Andre Louis. He found himself in the umbral, also called in we call it the lower zone in English. And this is what he said. This is what he wrote in the book, which he psychographed, or actually he communicated to Chico Xavier, who psychographed this. Actually, I felt like a prisoner trapped behind dark bars of horror, with my hair on end, my heart pounding, and scared stiff. I often cried out like a madman. I begged for mercy and clamored against the painful despondency that had taken hold of my spirit. But when my loud cries didn't fall on an implacable silence, they were answered by lamenting voices even more pitiful than my own. At other times, sinister laughter rent the prevailing silence. I thought that some unknown companion out there was a prisoner of insanity. Diabolical forms, ghastly faces, animal-like countenances appeared from time to time, increasing my panic. When it wasn't pitch dark, the landscape seemed to be bathed in a lurid light, as if shrouded in a thick mist that was warmed from afar by the rays of the sun. Well, it sounds horrible, doesn't it? This is what Andre Louis recorded. And he told of people coming to him, and they called him suicide. They just yelled suicide at him. And he says, well, but I didn't commit suicide. And it wasn't until he was rescued by the spirits from No Solar that he discovered that he was indeed a suicide. So suicide is not just taking your own life on purpose. He, Andre Louis, was an unconscious suicide, which denotes that he drank, and he also had unprotected relationships. Explicitly, he had syphilis, and then between syphilis and liver damage from drinking, that killed him. So, what am I saying? What is actually now? I'm saying, what is the spirit world saying? The spirit world is telling us that it's just like you tell your child that has a book at school, take care of that book. It's not your property, right? But and the same thing with us. This physical body, which is temporary, we have to take care of it. We have to take care of it until the end of our trial, the end of our stay, the end of our project plan, our blueprint. And unfortunately, some of us, either through drugs, alcohol, or risky behavior, destroy our bodies quicker. That's an unconscious suicide. Now, what happens? And I'll repeat this later on, but what happens is your perispirit is around your body, and your perispirit is timed to disconnect from your body when your life plan is done. If you were said that you were supposed to die on March 16th, 2004, let's say, that's when that event would occur, and your perispirit would disconnect from your physical body. But if for some reason you commit suicide in the year 2000, your perispirit will still be connected, and you'll be connected to your decaying body. Eventually, you'll be able to roam around the lower zone, but you'll spend yourself some time connected to that decaying body. Not a very pleasant happening. So let's talk about the book that Soul just finished, which is the one I just talked about, was Memoirs of a Suicide, which is it was published in 1955. And Camilo Branco committed suicide on June 1st in 1890. And he writes, now this is by a different spiritist writer. He writes, this is where he found himself. So I want to show people the similar conditions, similar and horrible. This is what he said. Within its winding gorges and sinister caves, spirits that used to be men and women on the earth howled like hordes of infuriated demons, demented by the absolutely unconceivable intensity and strangeness of the sufferings that tormented them. In that awful place, that distraught eyes of the condemned were unable to discern even the slightest gentle outline of a tree that might bear witness to their hours of desperation, or any comforting scenery for that matter, that might distract him from the wearisome contemplation of those gorges where no other expression of life could enter other than that of supreme horror. The ground, covered with fetid, dark soot-like matter, was filthy, pasty, slippery, and repugnant. The heavy air was asphyxiating, icy, and darkened by threatening clouds, as if never-ending storms were roaring all around. When they inhaled, the spirits confined there would choke, as if the pulverized matter, more noxious than ash and lime, had invaded their respiratory tract, tormenting them with a torture unimaginable to a human mind, used to the glorious light of the sun, that celestial gift that blesses the earth every day, and the life-giving currents of salutary breezes that invigorate the physical bodies of the planet's inhabitants. That is what he wrote. That's just, I mean, his writing, it's just really vivid, wonderful. So think about this: the absence of the sun, same as Andre Luis. The presence of pitiful creatures, the filth, all common with both experience. Not a good place to be. The spirit world must have desired to create a place that would be worse than whatever drove you to the conclusion that death would be a better alternative. And I also like to point out, it was like in Camino Blanco, as you read further, it was like he was like in this valley of suicides, and he was actually in this cave, I think, with 4 other people. And the book is actually him and it kind of his friends who committed suicide around the same time. They were taken to this this hospital that take, and I'll talk more about that in a bit, that brings in suicides and tells them, okay, this is why this wasn't a great idea. You're not left there forever. Suicide doesn't mean, as some religions say, that you're damned forever. No. It's a bad place, just like those who are criminal behavior, whatever. They stay there till their attitude changes. Although with suicide, it's different. There's a definite length of time because of what was planned for your life, right? So, I guess the question a lot of people ask, like, well, why does such pain await for suicides and for people who drink, drug, or smoke themselves to death? And the answer, as I said before, because we're expected to live through our trials, our lessons. And they're going to give you a lesson saying, you can't drop out of those classroom activities. That's not an option. And therefore, we have an obligation to live to our agreed upon lifespan. And unfortunately, many of us, fortunately, I guess, we're participants in mapping out the trials we shall experience while incarnated on Earth. And therefore, we have an obligation to stay true to our word and complete what we signed up for. And we have to remember, as said in many times in books, Psychograph by Chico Xavier, books by Allan Kardec, we are not given trials that we don't have a way to be triumphant. While the road may seem impossible, there is always a method for successful action. And by the way, maintain a good attitude throughout the entire ordeal, and you may get bonus points. Now, let me go on further of what happened with Camilo Branco. So, Camilo Branco eventually was rescued by the Legion of Mary, and it was Mary, the mother of Jesus. And they would come through this valley of suicide. They said, "Oh, okay, you're coming with us." And so Camino Branco went with some of his friends. And what they told him is, as I said before, they said, look, whatever terrible cycle you went through, right? Help would be on its way. It could take a week. It could be a month. It could be 6 months. It could be a year. But at some point in time, the issue would resolve itself, right? So if you're a woman or a man lamenting over a lost love, right? Or someone that betrayed you, that was all a lesson that you probably needed to learn. You had probably done the same to somebody else. But that would resolve itself, and someone who you really wanted to be with would come along at a later time. Therefore, when these things happen, these are just lessons for us. And I wrote a book on this. The problem is the solution. is we analyze your problems today and figure out, oh, okay, why am I going through this? Why can't I make any money? Or why do I keep losing, friends or whatever? Why am I sick? Right? Think about you may not ever pinpoint exactly what it was, but whatever you're going through, just tell yourself, I'll never make someone else go through what I'm going through. That's the safest thing is, oh, okay, I'll never make someone else have to go through, I was robbed. I'll never do that to anybody. Right. Those type of things. Just, don't like if someone leaves you in a real or divorces a horrible manner, right? Don't look for revenge, learn the lesson and move on. Right. That's why we're here. Right. And that's why we go through these trials, to teach us these things, to be honorable, even when other people are dishonorable to us. Right. Two wrongs don't make a right. So let's get back to Milo Bronco. So he was sent to this hospital, right? And there was I forgot how many to the rooms, a bunch of them to the room, but they put him and his buddies in a room. And the most shocking thing was, what they did is they had this large classroom arena, and they would put one of the people on the stage, and they took him into this apparatus. And they said, okay, what we're going to do, I'm going to go through everybody in this class. Everyone's going to get their turn. We're going to go through and we're going to look at your past lives, and we're going to determine why you went through the trials you did and why you had to pay for what you did. And, we'll explore it. So he had one of his friends who went through, and they found out that so first of all, this person committed suicide because he was had throat cancer. I think it was cancer of the throat or cancer of the tongue. And he was trying to get money to cure himself. He was working for a bank. He embezzled from the bank to help get him some treatment. They found out, and he committed suicide. He left a wife and family behind, right? So it's okay. So why were you put in this position? Why did you get cancer of the throat, right? They took him back in his past life. In his past life, he had decided he wanted to make a lot of money. And the way to make a lot of money back when he was born, back, hundreds of years ago, was to be in charge of being sending slaves back and forth between Africa and South America. He was a slaver, and he transported, and then he made plenty of money. He bought a plantation, and on this plantation, he took advantage of this young slave girl, and then the slave girl's father called him out on it. Said, "Why did you do that?" Because the slave girl was so embarrassed that she committed suicide. The father called him out and said something to him. And of course, what this guy did, he didn't like that. He had the guy strapped, and he had his tongue ripped out. So, of course, imagine how embarrassing that is to see. This is what this is what you did. Although I found out lately that when someone was telling me what I've done in my past was worse. I mean, as full disclosure, I had a medium tell me that he was looking. He was looking at me, and he was looking at my feet. He goes, "Do you have any problems with your feet?" I go, "No." He goes, "Well," and and he goes, in a past life, pretty far back, he goes, "You actually cut off the feet of people so they couldn't escape." Oh, Tommy Lou, what if someone worked 67 hours a week and had a heart attack from stress and working so much? Would that be considered suicide? Oh, that's a good question, Tommy. And I don't know. That may just be working too hard. That is a good question. I know we all have a responsibility to pace ourselves, but that's a good one. I'm not sure about that. And if anyone else has opinions, please chime in. But that's a good question. By overworking yourself. Now, I would say if you did that and no one gave you warning signs that you're going to have a heart attack, then I would say that that just may be ignorance, and I don't think you'll be blamed for that. But let's say if you were said, your doctor, whatever, okay, if you keep doing this through the stress, you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to die. And the fact that you did nothing about it, then that could certainly be an unconscious suicide because you didn't follow orders. That's just my off the cuff thinking of that. So anyway, talk about myself real quick. I'll just go through this. I've said this before, but I had done terrible things, right? So this person who was on this arena and showing this, he had done terrible things too. And that's why he had throat cancer. And then after he was done, what's interesting is to show you the effects and the interconnected of everything. The black slave came onto the stage. The one he took burned out his tongue, tore out his tongue. And as he was walking towards him, he transformed into his father. This wonderful person. Let me tell you some more backstory. When this guy died, the one who committed suicide, he was sent into the umbrella, just like the picture that you see on the screen. And there's all these people that were just trying to say terrible things to him, make his life horrible in the lower zone because he had been cruel. He'd been a cruel master. He'd kidnapped people, right, and shipped them from Africa to the New World. And the only one that helped him was the slave that he tortured. He helped him out of that into a better location. And that slave volunteered to be his father in the next life. What a truly magnificent man. Now, the person who was a slave, the reason he was a slave and got his tongue burned out, there's connections to it. The tapestry of lives, interconnectivity, is just amazing. The guy who was a slave was at one time a Roman general who enslaved many people and, of course, was cruel. So all these things happen over and over again. So anyway, this person found out why he had what was done. Then he learned. So what they say is what happens is, okay, now you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to go through this trial again, because suicide doesn't say, oh, okay, well, that was too hard for you. Never have to do that again. No, he's going to have to go back. He's going to have to experience something with his throat or tongue or something like that. And he's going to have to live through it. The other thing they tell us that at the age that you committed suicide, you will feel that urge to commit suicide again at the same age. And you'll have to fight that urge. And also we are told that then the people who commit suicide, like throwing, and Camilo Branco also talked about this, the people that committed suicide, like throwing themselves in front of a train or, shot themselves in the head or whatever, they'll experience just a horrible next life. A lot of that, the Spirit World says there's a lot of people who are mentally challenged that will happen, people who are physically damaged, because you're actually you're harming your paraspirit, and you almost have to go through that life. And sometimes if you commit suicide so badly that you'll have to be born and probably die early childbirth or whatever for your paraspirit to get back to that model of a human being again, because you've damaged your paraspirit so severely. So these are all bad things that happened when people commit suicide. Now, Camino Branco, I did a whole hour-long presentation on Camino Branco, but just very quickly, Camino Branco himself, in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, he killed himself. He shot himself because he went blind. He had to go through blindness because he actually, when he was a member of the Spanish Inquisition, he blinded a person and actually tortured very many people And actually, when you look at the stories of what these people did beforehand, and then so think about Camilo Bronco. Well, think about the first guy who took the tongue out of a guy, but that wasn't all. I mean, he tortured all sorts of people, but all he had to pay. It wasn't like this guy came back to Earth and people were torturing him for 100 years. No, he had throat cancer or cancer of the tongue. I forgot which, and he committed fraud and committed suicide. But that lesson he learned was quite easy compared to the acts he did, right? And Camilo Bronco, he said he tortured many people just on any pretense. He would happily follow the orders of his superiors and the Spanish Inquisition to get whatever money they wanted or whatever power they wanted. And all he had to pay was that he got, much older, was to be blind for, I don't know, probably not that long, right? 5 to 10 years. Now, of course, to us in the middle of whatever trials we're going through. Yes, and Soul says they can feel the pain all the time too. Yes, yeah, but yes, they feel the pain. When a person commits suicide, when you just expand on that one, when you let me show that comment up here because I think that's a good one to show from Soul. When they feel that, they'll actually feel the pain. They'll feel the pain of if they took poison, they'll feel it in their throat. They shot themselves in the chest, they'll feel chest pain, and that will last into the next life. There's also a time in one of Andre Luis's books where a person committed suicide by drinking poison. Well, this poor guy was reincarnated as a boy, and he had problems with his throat all the time, right? And he always, had something, throat pain, bronchitis, anything you could get. He was very sickly. He died, I think, at a very early age, but he had to, right? He had to get his body back where it was. Then he was reincarnated again for the same mother, at a later time, and he was healthy. So these are things that you have to repair your paraspirit. In fact, there was this lady that was messaging me one time, and she asked me, why did my son, my baby boy, have to die? And I said, I don't know. Can you tell me more? And she was a doctor, and she goes, yeah, my son was born, and then I forgot exactly when, but like 5 or 6 months after, they found that he had, maybe sooner, he had this congenital heart defect they never noticed before, and he died suddenly. And I said, well, that's horrible. I said, so let me ask you this. I said, well, first let me explain something. I said, it may be that he needed to go through that in order to repair his paraspirit, his body, but did you have any dreams or visions? Or because a lot of times the spirit world will explain things to you, right? They'll try and help you. She goes, well, I had a vision where I was on a beach and I saw this boy. He was like, he was like 17. He was in perfect health. And he said, and I just knew that was my son who had died early. And he says, Mom, I'm fine. I had to go through that, right? It was something I had to go through. It was important for me. I go, well, the spirit world told you. The spirit world told you why that happened, right? He had to repair his paraspirit. And probably, I didn't say this, probably at the same time, kind of give you a lesson in being sad and knowing what happened when, a life goes away. That's, they'll do that. I go, is there any other thing? He goes, my father had a dream that he talked to my, he talked to my son, and my son said, approximately the same thing. He said, he's fine. He was enjoying his time in the spirit world, and that this had to be. I said, well, there's another message. Well, did your father have any other dreams? He says, no, it was really strange. My father's never had dreams like that before. And out of the blue, it came. I said, you've been told a couple times by the spirit world what's happening. You have been blessed. They're trying to relieve your sorrow by giving you information. Read about Spiritism. Understand that, this boy is in better shape. Friends of ours, he's a spiritist. His son, who I think is almost 20 or early 20s, died suddenly. And then, 6 months after, in a spiritist meeting, another medium was given a message by his son and says, Dad, I'm fine. It was something that had to be, right? It was all planned. And it was interesting about this, on that death with sorrow is, right? That's why you should never commit suicide because if someone close to you died, because most of it, there's a reason. The spirit Emmanuel, who was the spirit guardian for Chico Xavier, who was, kind of organized things and all this type of stuff. In order for him to, and he actually wrote books in that Chico's psychograph, right? Great books like 2,000 Years Ago, other books like that, On the Way to the Light, great books. So the books by Emmanuel, psychograph by Chico Xavier. You'll see it then, it says by the spirit Emmanuel. But Emmanuel was sent to Brazil in the late 1800s, right? Chico was born like 1910. So he could learn to speak modern Portuguese. So when he transmitted mind to mind with Chico, he could use the colloquialisms correctly, right? He would know. Otherwise, a lot of spirits, when they try to connect to you, if they've been in the spirit world for a long time, won't be with the modern pronunciation or the modern use of a language. Therefore, he lived a very short life. Think how his parents must have thought, oh, he died a short life. He was going to college. He died in the middle of college. What a tragedy. Well, no, it wasn't a tragedy. He was sent there for a reason. No, it was hard for his parents, of course. But he learned, relative modern Portuguese to our time, and so he could do his job in the spirit world. Very interesting. So that's why you look at these things, and you have to think through these things, and things are not what they may appear to be. In fact, whenever I am told something, and I always think, why was that? And most times my wife and I are like, we think we have an explanation, but then later on we find out another explanation. It's like I heard someone was talking about people who are, are like prophets, prophecy, right? When they get this vision and it's, they think, and of course, when people read this, they go, okay, is this going to happen next week? And remember, right? It's like when I was talking with my wife, right? When I met my wife, she had, with an NDE, she had visions of the future. And this is when she was like 17. We didn't get married until she's 31. Hello, Marilda. And, she was told she's going to meet, a guy from another country and all these things. And, she's 17, so it was going to happen any moment, right? And, of course, it didn't happen for another 13, 14 years. So you never know, right? People, of course, we all get impatient, right? Because we're human and we think, well, a day's a long time, a week's even longer, and a month is forever. And so these things happen. So we have to be patient because after all, again, this is what we should tell suicides, right? Or people who think about wanting to commit suicide. Look, you are immortal. Whatever you are going through will resolve itself and you're going to have another life, right? And the better you try and stay in this life, and the more you try and learn and grow from the lessons planned presented to you, the better your next life is going to be. Because if I said this before, we are fashioning our next life by our acts and deeds and our thoughts and how we are molding our character in this life. It's just like a child, right? You think if your child was going to school and the school district was they had all these, specialists and saying, oh, we're going to do everything for, little Dora, right? And oh, okay, yes. Well, she has hard in this math, and we're going to teach her math in this. Oh, she's learning by this method, and we're going to teach her that method in her next class, and we're going to fashion a completely, customized lesson plan with all sorts of different teachers for each part, and even a subsection of a subject. Well, that's what happens to us. These little people that come in and out of our lives, and maybe that difficult person that came in our lives and made us mad, but that was for a reason, because we had to learn patience, we had to learn to be humble, I don't know, or whatever. Oh, hi, Barry. Oh, excellent. Well, thank you for coming tonight, Barry. So these things, these little pebbles and rocks and giant crevasses, right, are thrown in our way always for a reason. And that's what you should explain to people who are going through these hard times, is there's always a way out. There's always a resolution. Now, honestly, right, if someone's very sick, the resolution could be death at the end, but it's something they needed to go through before the end of their physical life, because Spiritism also tells us never underestimate the effects of even those last moments of life on a person. In those last moments of life, the light could turn on of why they're here, right? Of why they're here and how they should have perceived the world. So you never know. So that's why, to me right now, death is nothing. It's almost like it's amusing when you read about the billionaire so and so who wants to freeze their body, or they're putting in all sorts of, looking for ways to keep themselves longer. And I don't blame them. I would have done the same if I didn't know about Spiritism, or anyone who's religious and understands that we're here, we're an immortal soul. I understand they want to keep what they are, but in actuality, it's counterproductive, because if you lived in your same physical body, in your same circumstance, if you were, let's say, someone who was a billionaire on a yacht for 500 years, all you would do was retard your growth, changing your personality, fixing the flaws, and letting your primitive emotions stay within you for a lot longer time. Wouldn't go on forever, but that's all you're doing, is you're stopping yourself growing, because you're put in the whatever class, whatever country, whether economic conditions, race, culture, whatever, in each place to teach you a lesson, right? To teach you something. So I just wanted to make sure that if you're talking to someone like that who's depressed, and of course everybody gets depressed, is say, this, yes, I understand why you're depressed, but this will all be over in a moment's time, in the span of your immortality. See if you can learn from this, pray and meditate, right? Do something to get your mind off of things, right? Do something, go help people. The best thing we can ever do is go help other people. So, all I can say is the best thing you can do is to try and keep your eye on the ball and improve yourself. And I want to, let everyone know that first is, I think one of the best things that you can do is learn how to, for yourself, learn how to improve yourself. And one of the ways of doing it, some of the people here, yes, and we need to pray for them, absolutely. So pray for them and help them to learn to other spirits. So recommend to a friend or for yourself. If you want to talk about this or any other questions you have on Spiritism or anything you like, go to spiritismstudy.org, scroll down a little bit, and you can make an appointment to talk to me. I will be happy to. There's whatever you want, right? Nothing you have to read. I'm going to make you read or do, or nothing like that. It's just talk about Spiritism, create the appointment when you like, stop when you like. It's all fine. Let's see. There's Matthew. Let me shut this one down. Matthew had a long comment, so let me show that to people. He said, speaking of that, I recently had an idea of body cloning, where if someone died, they could have their DNA stored somewhere. That way it'd be used in the future to make a copy of the last body they were in. That way people could identify them more easily. I think it came to the end, but he said could identify them more easily. And I think so. That's a good question. So, and let's talk about this for a second. So these other people, like I've seen a lot of people read where they'll actually freeze your body, right? I think it was like Walt Disney had his head frozen or something like that. So at some point in time, where modern science, right, could remake your body, and then, as Matthew was saying, could clone you, is then how could your soul go back into that body? Well, right now, what I think now, I'm saying this from my own ideas, nothing that I've read in spiritist literature, because I've not read anything that pertains to this. But what I have read in spiritist literature, what I believe will happen is that no, your soul will go into the body that's planned for you for the life that you should be in. That, let's say that if they made a perfect clone for you, or let's say, first of all, let's say you were your body was frozen. Let's take that example first, and somehow they brought you back to life. There'd be no soul there. They would not bring you back to life. You may have breaths, right? Because your perispirit, without your perispirit, your body really is just more like an automata, right? Your body's not really there. You're not going to have a conscience, and therefore your heart may go, your blood may circulate through, but there's nothing there. That's what I believe would happen. It's never been done yet, though. I could be wrong. Now, let's say Matthew says, let's say they have a perfect clone of you. Now, what does that mean? Could that spirit world then take and say, okay, we're going to put that soul into that body? I don't think that would occur. Interesting proposition, though. But I don't think that would occur because you're not meant to be the same life after life, right? You go through life on Earth, on our planet of atonement, for a broad range of experiences. And as I said before, not everything you go through is a trial caused by previous wrongs you did. Many things you go through are because you needed broadening your experience, right? Maybe you needed to go through life in poverty, and you spent good times, and you're an honorable, good person, life in riches, right? Which is really a tough trial. But then you needed to see, can you be that same good person as life as poor? Do you need to spend a life as a doctor, or a life as a mid-level manager like I am, right? Maybe I need a life as a mid-level, or maybe you needed a life on the battlefield to prepare you for the next life. So these things are you never know. Another comment that your spirit will be using another physical body in a future reincarnation to give you a chance to experience a new life. We need new machinery to get a chance to evolve our spirit. Yes, I think Don Bergfeld, you said that better than I did. It's right. You need those new experiences, and you need that. Let me put that up here, because I think that is an excellent comment. Yes, it's all about broadening your horizons. Let me put it this way: why do we need to become a perfect spirit? Right? A high spirit has immense power. When I've said before, you go to my YouTube channel or my nwspiritism.com blog. In the spirit world, as you get higher and higher, thought is action, right? What you think will occur. Jesus Christ and other high spirits got together, created the solar system, right? Out of what God created for the universe, created the solar system, manufactured the earth, so to speak. You can change lives, you can change the evolution of animals and plants and everything. That's immense power. And would you want, someone to go through one life and have that much power? Heck no, right? It's like an airline pilot. That's why they have simulators. You want the simulator to have every horrible thing that could possibly happen to that plane occur in a simulator, so they could make mistakes. Right, we're here on Earth to make mistakes. We're expected to make mistakes. Good for learning. So when you graduate, as we graduate into higher levels of heaven, you are a veteran pilot, right? You keep your calm, right? Imagine if someone like me, if I had that power and someone came through and insulted me and I got mad, and who knows if I had the power of a spirit, a very high spirit, the level of Jesus Christ, what I could do horrible things. You'd never want me in a position of power, for heaven's sakes. And so therefore I need to go through these learning experiences. And all of us do. We have to be realistic about ourselves. We're on a planet of atonement. What does that mean about us? It means that we're relatively immature spirits. We have a lot to learn, right? We get mad, we get angry, we're envious, we're devious sometimes. We're a lot of fun too, right? But these are things we have to learn. We have to get rid of that. Primitive emotions, become fraternal, charitable, honest in every situation, learn to listen to your conscience. And that's one of the best ways of learning, of becoming and learning how to ascend. And that is start learning to follow your conscience. And I go through a lot of this in my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism. And what the Spirit under Luis did, he wrote like really short stanzas, a 24-verse poem. And I go through each one. They're layered for each one on top of the other, of what he said, what the spirit world means by that, and how to attain that level, right? Like have an industrious patience as an example. And I go through, what does that mean? Patience. And I've been told that patience was not one of my virtues. That's one thing I had to learn on this earth. And boy, that is so true. And hopefully I've taken that to heart, because I was rushed through anything, right? And the more that you can understand, that's why I wrote these books, is that, and of course, some people just have to read the Spirit's book or read books by Andre Luis or Yvonne Pierre. It's however you want to learn. That's important, not just what I wrote. But what I try to do is I tried to bring things together and tell people, okay, this is the organization of the spirit world. On my 3 books, Heaven and Below, Spirits in the Spirit Universe. This is how things work. This is the level of heavens. This kind of gives you, this is what the organization is. This is your place in the organization. And in my book, How to Live, okay, if you want to rise in that, if you want to make yourself more calm, less stress, this is how you achieve advancement. So I try and approach it different ways. And I believe for me is I had to understand the spirit world and go, okay, why do I want to be a part of this? Do I want to put the effort? You don't have to, right? You don't have to put the effort in ascending. You don't have to put the effort in making yourself a better person. You can park yourself on this level, until the sun burns out and go to another planet of atonement, right? You don't have to be here. You have free will. The spirit world doesn't force anybody to learn. It's all on your own pace, your own free will. And you don't have to follow Spiritism. On the other hand, you don't have to follow Spiritism to improve yourself. You'll get to heaven. You can be not believe in God at all, but be a good, kind, and loving person, calm and cool, shining light to everyone on how you behave, and you'll still go to heaven and improve. Maybe in his future life, you'll be more spiritual, but that is up to you. It's being a good person. There's nothing more important than being a good person. So I want to thank everyone. We've had great comments on our show tonight. So thank you, everyone. Please come to my other Facebook site. Well, the Karadoc Radio is a bunch of people's Facebook site, not just mine. And there's a wonderful group of people that will advertise and give live streaming on Karadoc Radio. And remember, the Karadoc Radio app itself, download it on your Android or your Apple phone, Karadoc Radio. You can load it up for free. But on my Facebook site, Spiritism, the Spirit World Around Us, again, talk like this every Wednesday night, same time. So please join that. And you'll see a link to that Kardec Radio site and Spiritism, the Spirit World Around Us site on my blog, nwspiritism.com. So I want to say, everyone, have a wonderful night, and God bless everyone. God bless you.